Well, the big news, I think, for me this week, in addition to, of course, Texas passing the lemonade stand freedom access law that allows kids to sell lemonade in front of their houses without getting arrested, was this case out of Oberlin, Ohio. Now, Oberlin College is a tiny little school that is actively progressive. It celebrates the liberal arts and is a liberal celebrant of those liberal arts. They were just ordered to pay over $30 million to Gibson's Bakery and members of the Gibson family because they actively smeared Gibsons, calling them racists in the face of just trying to not get plundered by shoplifters. It's a college town. They get lots of college kids in the store. And just so happens, this one college kid, he had the complexion for the connection. He didn't think that he should have to worry about shoplifting because he's a black guy. And he and his two black lady friends went into the store, caused a commotion. He tried to steal he tried to buy one bottle of wine on a fake ID and steal two others. He was refused service, and the shopkeeper tried to basically grab him and hold on to him for police because he was trying to steal the two bottles of wine. And he and his two friends proceeded to beat the shop clerk who chased him out of the store to hold him for police. It turns out that kid is the son of the owner of the store. Jonathan Alladin from Trenton, New Jersey, was the perpetrator of the crime. He's a black guy, and his friends N.D.L. Lawrence and Cecilia Whetstone, black women, were accompanying him in the store, and that is all the importance, their race. Why does that matter? Well, the whole thing is about their race, because if they're white people, that's the end of the story. But because they were able to cry that this was somehow some sort of racial animus, racially motivated crime, that's what led to this $30+ million verdict against Oberlin. They started right from the night of the arrest, crying about how this was about race. The shopkeeper, the Gibson family, Alan Gibson and his father and grandfather, and all the shopkeepers and others who were in the store, their story is that Mr. Aladdin came to the register with a bottle of wine and wanted to pay and check out with that with a fake ID. And that at the time he did so, he had two other bottles of wine in his pants, concealed about his person in order to shoplift them. Well, the clerk refuses to sell the kid the wine, basically tries to grab him and hold him, and he runs away further deeper into the store, drops the two other bottles of wine that he has, continues running and fighting with the kid who's trying to hold him out into the street, and they tussle, and then the two girls that are with him, they start beating on young Mr. Gibson, along with our shoplifter, now robbery suspect, Mr. Aladdin. Now, Mr. Aladdin's testimony and story is that he went in that store, and for no reason whatsoever, Mr. Gibson just started attacking him, motivated presumably by racial animus. That's all. That's the counterclaim, that he should be arrested for attacking him out of nowhere because he was a black guy. Okay, well, the suit was not against Mr. Aladdin or his accomplices in the beating or attempted robbery or theft. No, the suit was against Oberlin College. Well, how did they become involved? They're involved because of what happened next. The protests and ruination of the Gibson store at the hands of the students, the social justice warriors, and the college's administration. Now, we'll get in a second to what a series of outrages were that justified such a massive award from this Ohio jury, or series of awards. There was a compensatory damage award of, I think, just a little more than $10 million, and then the punitive damages award or was capped at double that, and that's where you get to this award that is $33 million and may include more millions in terms of legal fees. I think that's still yet to be decided. Well, in 2013, the Oberlin College leadership that was still the leadership in place when the Gibson bakery incident started. Let's let the news report tell the tale. This is 2013.
Oberlin, Ohio. It is 35 miles from Cleveland, home to this small liberal arts college. It's called Oberlin College. The school has a progressive reputation, known to be the first U.S. college to admit African-American students and the first to grant degrees to women. And this community here in Ohio boasts the legacy of inclusion and respect for diversity. But that is far from what students here have been feeling in the wake of 15 hate-related events in the past month targeting African-Americans and gays. They include a sign proclaiming whites only, a swastika drawn on a building, reports of someone wearing KKK robing. But the most recent event, that was the last straw.
As I was in the car, I saw someone in what seemed to be KKK paraphernalia walking on a pathway that's like a pathway that leads to South Campus. And just like seeing that and having it sink in, like this is something that's real, that actually happens.
This is something real that actually happens. Now, the great news is that it wasn't real and it didn't happen. There was no person in KKK garb. There was a woman who was wearing a blanket. And the woman who said that she saw the person in KKK garb, we presume is not a liar or a race hustler, but just was so primed by these many events of racist reporting, and also, of course, the virtue of being somebody who is surviving the witnessing of such an event provides a sort of psychosomatic or psychological benefit that, fine. Her boyfriend, who was with her at the time, by the way, did not report seeing any KKK person. And again, there was none there. But those other racist incidents that were reported did in fact happen. The swastikas being drawn and the other threatening racist messages, they did happen. But here's the thing. They weren't perpetrated by racists in order to threaten or intimidate or whatever. They were, in fact, perpetrated by ultra-liberal left-wing students in order to generate a reaction. They were Obama campaigners and hoaxers. Okay, fair enough. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that if you're a member of the Oberlin community, or if you're a student on Oberlin's campus, it's a big difference if the racist swastika flyers that were left outside your door were left by your classmates, Dylan Blyer and Matt Alden, in order to get a rise out of people and demonstrate the, heteronormative, white supremacist nature of our existence, I guess, or by some Buckeye rednecks that are going to murder you because you're Jewish or gay or whatever. Well, that's a problem. And if you're the college administrator and it's a bunch of kids goofing off and you don't tell anybody, well, it seems like you've got a problem.
Classes were canceled yesterday. Instead, students got together for campus-wide demonstrations of solidarity. I want to bring in the president of Oberlin College. He is Marvin Krislov, joins me now from campus. Sir, welcome to you. Let me just begin with sort of what we've gotten here at CNN, that police there in Oberlin, they have just told us at CNN that they have identified 2 students involved in some of these incidents. Can you corroborate that with me?
Good afternoon. It's great to talk to you. I'm not able to talk about the details of the investigation, but I can tell you that we're taking it very seriously and it continues.
Can you tell me if these people perhaps involved that you're hearing are students? Can you at least confirm that?
I'm really not able to talk about the details of the investigation. It's a law enforcement matter, and we're cooperating with various law enforcement agents on this.
Well, the big lie there is that he's not able to communicate the information that they know it was students who did this as a goof. They knew it, and they absolutely could communicate that information. I think they have a moral duty to do so, to let people know. I mean, the Klan is a terrorist organization. You should be scared of the Klan. And if they know there's no Klan presence, if they know it's just some kids, some leftist, anti-racist activist kids who, through some crazy backwards way of thinking, think this is okay, don't you have a duty? University President Marvin Krislov, or at least immediate past university president, he's been replaced by a woman of color, by the way. They've got some progress going on out there, to be sure. Well, no, he doesn't have that duty as far as he's concerned. It behooves him to maybe he shares the same principles that the people who ginned up the swastikas. It's all good if it raises what? Awareness? Well, that's what has led us to this verdict. It was a couple days before Donald Trump won his presidency that this shoplifting arrest took place. Now, that timing becomes important because many people believe that the Trump presidency, and you have to remember sort of how things were in the sort of immediate reaction to it from so many on the left who were really disillusioned by that. They didn't think it was something that could even be possible. That the protests just sort of really swept up that energy, and it became that energy fed it. But 2 days before the Trump won, Mr. Aladdin was arrested. Here's the junior Jussie Smollett crying out for his mama too, in the face of his no doubt unjustified arrest for shoplifting some wine.
Can you tell me anything that's going on?
Yes, you're being arrested for theft right now.
I didn't steal
Probably
anything.
assault.
I didn't touch him, though, but he attacked me. I didn't touch him.
Okay.
Is there anybody I can talk to? My mother? Anything?
That's what everybody's writing.
So why am I only being arrested and he's not?
Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. In May of 2017, the man that you just heard, Jonathan Aladdin, and his co-defendants, accomplices, Endina Lawrence and Cecilia Whetstone, all pled guilty to various crimes for their conduct regarding the shoplifting, the attempted buying underage booze, and shoplifting, and the physical assault of Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson did not plead guilty to anything. He wasn't charged. And Mr. Aladdin and none of his accomplices filed charges or pursued any kind of civil remedy for the alleged unprovoked racial attack. But that was months later. If we go back to the night of the arrest and the days after, what happened was the social justice warrior crew at Oberlin, and they've got a deep bench on that one, I can tell you, they made it their mission to shut down Gibson's because you can't go ahead and prosecute black people if they shoplift from your store because they're black. That's basically the reason why. Or that if anybody says that they're were put upon or arrested or acted upon by reason of racial animus, that doesn't deserve any kind of investigation. It's just to be taken at face value, and that's what they did. But the problem was that it wasn't just these crazy students who did it, but the administration themselves. And as we see from the example in 2013, that's why I wanted to play that for you, so you can see how Marvin Krislov and his crew, how they are about race matters. They are fully woke. And what they did was sort of a parade of horribles against Gibson's. One of the worst things was a flyer that they circulated. The protesters were circulating a flyer that said, "Don't buy." This is out front of the establishment. And this is they're a bakery, an ice cream parlor. They have like sundries and dry goods. It's a sort of a catch-all. Looks like a nice store. You can get a $2.49 bagel with cream cheese, at least at the time of the arrest. That's what the sign said. So that's a pretty good deal. And they were filling out or passing out these flyers that said, quote, "This is a racist establishment," all caps racist, "with a long account," all caps, "of racial profiling," all caps, "and discrimination," all caps. "Today we urge you to shop elsewhere." Now, that's one thing if a bunch of protesting students want to go ahead and do that, but Oberlin College Dean of Students, Meredith Raimondo, well, she was handing it out too. This was the official posture of the college and its leadership. The official position of the college was that Gibson's is a racist institution. And of course, they can't exist. It's a one-horse town. If you can't do business with the college's students, and Gibson's was also a vendor for the college. They provided food for it and perhaps other goods as well. And the college started screwing with their vendor status. And in fact, they sort of threatened them and basically said that they wouldn't continue to use them or might not continue to use them if they continued to press charges against these three students. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Aladdin's plea deal, he wanted to plead guilty to a lesser charge. The prosecution agreed with it, and Gibson said, well, it's okay because it's in the community interest. The judge in the case didn't allow that plea because they thought that Gibson's was basically under threat, that if they didn't go ahead and agree to downgrade the man's serious robbery charge to something like petty theft, that they would have to go out of business. And it wasn't a voluntary statement because of that sort of Damocles. There were lots of interesting bits that went on during the trial, and I think that perhaps the most telling is that of Ms. Raimondo's testimony. Now, she handed the flyer. She was passing out the flyers. If she didn't pass them out and it was just students, we wouldn't have this case. But it's because of the college leadership and what they did to disparage Gibson's. That's why we have the case. So it's important that she was one of the people who were passing out the flyers. Well, a man called Jason Hawk, who's editor for the Oberlin News Tribune, testified that he attended the November 10 protest and that Meredith Raimondo gave him a flyer when he asked what the protest was about. Quote, "She argued we didn't have the right to take photos of the protest." He wrote in his initial story that the flyer that said, quote, "This is a racist establishment with a long account of racial profiling and discrimination" was, quote, "literature provided by the Oberlin College Dean of Students, Meredith Raimondo, who stood with the crowd." Now, the school did not like that description of the event in the local newspaper. And Oberlin College's director of media relations sent Hawk an email asking him to retract it, the detail that the literature was provided by Raimondo, and instead that it was provided by student organizers. Hawk replies, "Sorry, not true. She handed me the literature." And we know from discovery that when the director of media relations asked Raimondo, she emailed back, "He's a liar." Well, that wasn't in court. Now she's under oath. What does she say during the trial? Oh, she says, "I did give him the flyer." Yeah, once the oath is administered and the penalty for perjury attaches, the story changes. And so she did. And so that, combined with her statements and others of the president, that's what yielded this $30+ million judgment. You know, some of the other just wacky details of the case. The college spent $65,000 on an economist to do maybe economist is not fancy enough a name for whatever this guy's title is, but he gets $65,000 to do an economic study of the value of Gibson, the business that has supported multiple generations of this family. It's from the 1800s it's been open, and he says the whole store is worth $35,000. Just a real outrage. This is what Mr. Gibson says the problem is.
You know, this whole thing is just there's so much theft going through our store right now.
Yeah.
The students, I cannot believe, I just don't know how to get control of it. Really. I mean, it's nonstop.
Yeah.
All the poor man wants is to get control over the theft at his store at the hands of these entitled Oberlin kids. And he can't do it. He can't do it without being labeled a Nazi for just wanting to not have his stuff be stolen and be able to engage in his business. I really hope that the significant damage award, it is a huge endowment that Oberlin has, I think over $1 billion, but still, this much has to hurt. They've got to get some nasty alumni letters, I imagine, and hopefully these people will start losing their jobs. The more woke among them, and administrators or boards of governances for these schools will say, we do not want social justice warrior woke people leading our schools. We want sane leadership. But in spite of this verdict, I have to say I haven't been left hopeful by this case because of another video that I saw while looking for some of the original content of the arrest itself that I could try to determine what I thought of the goings on. And this was recorded by a local woman of color, a millennial who's in Oberlin, and she posted this to her YouTube account.
I've been going to the store for years or whatnot, and now I find out that they might be a racist institution. Hopefully they're not, but at the same time, a lot of people are saying that they've been profiled, and you really have to wonder. But it's kick-ass that people are protesting in the town. Like, oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It gave me chills. It gave me chills.
Now, this is a young woman who's been going to that very store for years and has no racial complaint, no complaint whatsoever that she's been maligned or treated differently on the basis of her race. But yet, one person says so, and it blows up on social media, and she's now questioning, think about that, years and years of her own personal actual data collection as to whether or not these people treat other people inappropriately on the basis of race, are willing to throw that all out. And how great is it that there's a protest on? That's sexy and fun, isn't it? Well, sorry to let you off on a sad note. Here's a good one. We'll be back at you next week with more Uprising. Please like, comment, subscribe. Go to libertynation.com 24/7 for all your conservatarian, that's conservative and libertarian news and analysis. Thanks so much for listening. Ciao.